page turner. I am Haley, and I will be your host this afternoon. Um, I am going to be doing this to try and get over my anxiety and a little bit of self um, promoting as well. Not only for my book, but it's for future. I do own a bookstore in Mackinac City and in Michigan, and I am going to be there for after today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a chapter every 2 weeks from my book, Print. And I own the copyrights, by the way. And I'm going to be, the reason why it's called Pickled Page Turner is I'm going to be drinking. This is called Giggle juice. I did look up the recipe. I didn't make it obviously in front of you, but what it is lemon flavored vodka, which I'm usually not a vodka drinker, but I figured give it a try. And then it is, they told me to get champagne Moscato, but I think this works just fine. This is called Barefoot Fruit Moscato, and it's strawberry flavored. They told me to garnish it with strawberries, so I figured using that would actually make it a little bit yummier. And then just regular pink lemonade, for color, they said, so. But you can add, obviously, ice or anything else to it. They did have mint as a garnishment as well, and raspberries. I did not, I just did the lemon and strawberries inside, as you can see. But I'm going to taste it in front of you guys just to see how I did, because it's about, I would want to say about 1 part vodka to 2 parts Moscato and about maybe like that much pink lemonade, so hopefully it tastes good. Very lemony, but I will say it would probably do the trick. It would definitely go down very well if you're not paying attention. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my book. And a little backstory, I wrote it about 2 years ago, and I was not in a very good place in my life. My grandfather had just passed, and I was kind of in a writing slump. I didn't really know what to write about. I have a book called Scarlet already out, which kind of was a flop for me, and I kind of had to just channel my energy and bounce back from that. So, in my opinion, my grandfather actually spoke through me, and I sat down one day with, I actually had a dream at first about a girl that was talking to a ghost, and just like it was normal, just every day. And I just sat down and wrote about it. I wrote the first chapter in a day, which is amazing for anybody that knows writing at all. Normally it takes you a lot longer. And I was happy with the results. The completed series, or the completed first book anyways, this is going to be a 3-part series, but the completed first book took me about, I want to say, 6 to 7 months to write. So honestly, it didn't take me very long. The words just kept coming, and everything just flowed together very nicely. So what it's about is it's about an 18-year-old girl who she always has known that she is different from everybody else. She has had vivid dreams since she was younger, about people's death. She saw them getting killed in her dreams. And it's not always murder. People have heart attacks, people have strokes, people, just die of old age. It happens. But there's always somebody with her in this dream. She's never seen his face. It's always been a cloaked figure, and he's never spoken a word to her. But she's really confused as to why she has these dreams. And during the day, she actually sees these people out and about after they've passed. And they don't talk to her. It's not like I can't think of it. There's an old TV show um, about a girl that gets talked to from the dead, trying to pass. But it's not like that. They just say hi and kind of like every other day. They don't know they're dead. Um, so she works at her parents' camp store, and eventually there's this guy that walks in, and she has like this familiar feeling about him, and that's where chapter one starts. So after she sees him, she tries to steer clear of him because there's just this weird feeling that she doesn't like about him, um, and she can't. He's everywhere she turns, um, and eventually she starts having feelings for him, and she learns that he is actually her charge. In which case, in this particular book, he is the Grim Reaper. And I'm going to stop there because I really want you to listen to the first chapter and see how you like it. And if you don't like it, then obviously you don't have to listen to the rest of the book. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a chapter every 2 weeks, along with a new drink. So this is going to be the first drink, obviously, which is kind of strong. But I'm going to do a chapter every 2 weeks, and then in the interim, I'm going to also be telling a ghost story of my area. So I live in northern Michigan, and I don't know if any of you have been up here, but it is very, very haunted, for lack of a better term, especially Mackinac Island and the city. So both are witch in here. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. And like I said before, I own the copyrights to my book, so I can do this. I'm not sure if I'm the only author that's ever done this, but I'm going to definitely try and make it interesting for you. I am doing this mainly for trying to get over my anxiety and my shyness. And I think this is the best way to do it because not very many authors like to read their own stories, especially aloud, and especially to people that are probably going to know them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with chapter 1 after another drink because this is really good. And I'm going to probably do that a couple times, so just so you're aware. Okay. And I do have a quote in the beginning of the book. And it says, it's from Edgar Allan Poe. And the quote is, "The boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and where the other begins?" Okay. So chapter 1. Hiding the body would be simple. 200 acres of soft soil lay beneath my feet, void of almost all human life. Several cast iron pie cookers hung on the wall to my right, prepped and ready to become the perfect weapon. Running my slim fingers against the black, cold metal sent shivers of excitement racing down my spine. If I timed it right, my attack could go off without a hitch. All I had to do was swing hard and not miss. The bloody mess would, no doubt, send my mother into a tizzy. The prison sentence would be a cakewalk compared to this torture. Constant snacking and popping of bubblegum 3 feet from me drove forward the plot of murder in my head. The victim, girl invading my personal space, flipped her platinum hair, causing a wave of flowery perfume to activate my gag reflexes. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her for another minute without doing something drastic. And yet, I had to work another 3 hours with that wretched, soul-sucking vampire until my shift was up. Again. I needed a note. I could always fake sick and hide in the bathroom for the remainder of my shift. It would undoubtedly disgust her if I pretend to vomit all over the floor. If she were to squeal to my parents, the store owners, my shift tomorrow would be cut and I would lose money. Not to mention, my mother would be hovering around me with means to cure my illness. She's been on an odd homeopathic kick lately, and I prefer not to have butter smeared all over my body. Again. Then the perfect excuse came to me. I'm going to the back to count inventory. You okay by yourself for a while? She scoffed, flipping her bleach blonde hair once more and picking at her fake nails. I expected one of them to break at any second. With a roll of her eyes, she huffed. This job isn't rocket science, Blister. I'll be fine, I'm sure. I cringed when she used that cruel nickname. Okay. Thankful for the permissive out, I swiveled on my heels and retreated to the far corner of the store where the door to the supply room sat, gratefully treating it like my personal hobbit hole, a hideout fit for a king. Alex Perry wasn't a bad person. I mean, she wasn't a good person by any means, but I wouldn't necessarily call her evil incarnate. She's just your run-of-the-mill cheerleader with a gaggle of brain-dead minions at her beck and call. Long legs, lush curves, and a perfectly placed hair attracted every boy within a 30-mile radius. She controlled the school, the queen bee that even the faculty bowed to like royalty. I was the target of dirt beneath her fresh new Skechers ever since we entered the double doors at Inverness Kindergarten. It began the day she caught me talking to someone that wasn't there. I tried and begged Alex to believe in Shelley's presence, the small child with blood leaking from the top of her forehead, but Alex simply could not see her. Ever since that fateful day, she painted me as the weird kid that speaks to invisible people. I'd already taken stock and ordered inventory earlier in the week. The storage room could now be utilized as a safe haven. Instead, I scrolled through my news feed of all the social media outlets and found nothing of interest, which meant an angry bird should die a miserable death at my hand. Sorry, it made me laugh a little bit because I forgot I wrote that. A little retro, I know, but I considered the game to be fun and a huge stress reliever. I was defeating the very last pig with my mighty yellow bomb bird when I heard a high-pitched screech from the front. Oh my God! Couldn't I have had 5 minutes of peace before I had to leave paradise? It wasn't a huge surprise. I had known it would only be a matter of time before the blonde ogre needed my assistance. She probably saw a spider, and to kill it with her own delicate hands would be sacrilege. Having lost level 39, I wasn't adamant on greeting her with a cheerful demeanor and helping attitude. I cleared the screen of any open apps and shoved it in the back pocket of my jeans, stomping out of the storage room like a child amidst a temper tantrum. As I entered the camp store, I noticed someone looming over the counter speaking to Alex quite animatedly, waving his arms to and fro. Fearing that she may have angered a customer, I quickly strode toward the two of them, preparing to perform significant damage control. However, growing closer to the conversation, it became apparent that he wasn't angry in the least. They were flirting. Well, I think it was more than flirting. Alex was offering herself to him on a silver platter. I didn't want to be caught peeping on the intimate display. The nearest aisle of shelving units provided an ultimate cover. I took their animalistic mating rituals as an opportunity to hide in the shadow and possibly gather some tips on how to speak to boys. I told ya. I'm not what one would call classically beautiful. Ivory white skin and natural hair may have been all the rage before the 20th century, but in the 21st, it's just sad. My small upturned nose petite frame, and quiet voice gave the impression I belonged in the library. The horn-rimmed glasses that covered almost my entire face topped the geek chic look like an ugly cherry. Throughout my years at elementary, I had become painfully shy, unable to ask the teacher to use the restroom, let alone converse with my peers. Something happened in middle school, however, that finally broke me. I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but the rage building inside of me all these years unleashed upon the masses. Walls that no one could tear down developed my unique coping mechanism. My blunt humor and sarcastic tone didn't earn me many friends, and certainly not a boyfriend in 6 years at that hellhole. Everybody's experiences probably from high school. If anything, I repelled almost everyone. So maybe working with Alex this summer, watching her work her magic on members of the male population could help me. There was that hair flip again. She was going to break her neck if she kept doing that. I should be so lucky. I shook my head in disbelief. Alex's peacocking was foolproof. The boy reached his hand over the countertop and rested atop hers. Well, I'll be damned. It worked. Her ditzy behavior actually worked. Before I subject myself to witness their little game of tonsil hockey, I chose to maneuver around the lovebirds and escape back to my closet of solitude. The shoelaces on my red Converse sneakers, however, had other plans. As I was pivoting on the opposite direction, the aglet had caught between the metal hinge holding the shelves together. Suddenly, I lost my balance. Panicking, I grabbed anything to help steady myself, but all I could find were easily collapsible cans of pie filling. Like a domino effect, every single one of them toppled over with me onto the wood floor below. An explosion of sticky wetness splattered in orifices I never knew I had, doing a stand-up job of filling my nose and making it difficult to breathe. A few more shots to the chest and legs, accompanied by a massive bang, forced a shriek from my throat. I knew what it was from the smell immediately. I was lying on the ground, coated from head to toe in blueberry, cherry, and apple. Multiple footfalls rushed towards me. Already feeling mortified, I covered my eyes with my forearm in an attempt to shield any embarrassment that would no doubt linger for weeks on end. Oh my god, this is so perfect. Alex's horrid shrill of excitement pierced my eardrums. Are you okay, miss? That voice. I know that voice. It's familiarity. Hold up. Its familiarity with warm silk sheets and chocolate-covered treats dripping with promises of delectable sin. My brain suffered a bit from a shake from the fall. My brain suffered a bit of a shake from the fall, but identified with the bravado. The sound of a phone camera clicking rebounded through the rafters of the cathedral ceiling. It echoed through the store as if plugged into a high-definition speaker and cranked up to the highest volume. Alex bleated on. Wait till the whole class sees this. I hate this girl. I hate her with every fiber of my being. Hold on. If her hairspray finally caught fire, I take the time to admire the beauty of the orange flames before grabbing a stick and roasting marshmallows. This is going on Instagram. Little blister finally filling out. Oh, that's perfect. You're going viral. She jumped up and down with glee, causing her barely there top to rise up her trim stomach. The hot sting of tears dripping the truth that I was allowing her to win. I had given up before she even began her tirade. But at the moment I didn't care. All I could concentrate on was another nickname tacked onto my already long list. All because of Alex. Always because of Alex. The witch's cackles were abruptly cut short. Would you shut up? The booming command of the stranger sent chills straight through my spine. Can't you see she's hurt? For the first time in her life, Alex obeyed. She shut up, her mouth slack jaw wide open, catching flies, while she focused on the man in disbelief. My favorite part was that after devoting all of her attention to her only moments ago, now he wouldn't even give her a second glance. Stranger 1, Alex 0. Are you all right, miss? He bent toward me, his hand extended. Alex tucked in annoyance and loudly stomped back to her position at the cashier's counter, picking up her nail file and violently scraping at her fingers. Well, gee, don't worry about me, doll. I'll be fine lying on my back covered in pie. Even though I would have loved to savor the moment of retribution on Alex Perry, something else was a bit more critical. Like how the man standing in front of me was identical to the serial killer in my dreams. He was staring at me. Eyes the color of onyx delved into my soul, searching my green depths, trying to find some recognition between the two of us. Hardship and misery swam aplenty, hints of animosity sprinkled in too. A slow heat crept up my neck, lavishing my cheeks with a crimson tint to rival the fullest rose. I promise I've only had one, but holy cow. It's potent. My fingers slid slowly into his awaiting palm with the tiniest jolt of electricity. Sorry, I blushed as I gathered my wits. His inky black eyebrows creased and rose as a singular silver lip ring disappeared between his full lips. He really was beautiful. So beautiful that my breath hitched as the ring popped back out and settled. 5 o'clock stubble traced a powerful jaw, biceps that would make Jason Momoa melt like a schoolgirl, bulging as he stuffed his hands in his pocket, rocking back and forth on his heels to appear sophisticated, nonchalant. My heart fluttered in my chest. It's okay, his velvet voice reassured. You didn't mean to. I caught myself staring at his full lips again as my tongue darted out to lick my own. Cherry. Come on, Stowe, you're not going to turn into a brainless pile of mush just because a complete Adonis is talking to you. I scrambled to stand, trying not to resemble a newborn deer just after birth. After a long, painfully awkward silence, I finally bucked up the courage to ask, Do I know you? His head shook in disagreement. He was lying. He had to be. People don't just dream up random faces every night since they were 2, especially not one as good-looking as his. A heaping dollop of blueberry pie filling fell from the corner of my forehead and dropped onto the ground with a loud splat. That crimson heat crept up my neck again once more, painting my cheeks in its wake. Blushing any more might cause the tomatoes in aisle 3 to grow jealous of my magnificent coloring. The Cupid's bow grin he produced only provided fuel to the fire inside me. I grabbed a rag lying on the cashier's counter behind me and began wiping down the counter just to keep busy. A very distinct feminine scoff echoed in the background. I forgot Alex was still here. Everyone on the planet ceased to exist in his presence. Ignoring everything to my left, I stuck my hand out and introduced myself. My name's Bliss, by the way. Thank you for sticking up for me. It was very kind. He gave me an incredulous look, dubbing me the Queen of Idiocy. For a moment I had forgotten all about the bolt of lightning I bestowed upon his innocent hand just seconds ago. Sorry, I whispered, tucking it back in my pocket. You say that a lot, don't you? He asked with a wicked smirk. I know, I'm sorry. I covered my mouth to keep any more unnecessary apologies from slipping out. My embarrassment was reaching critical mass. If I didn't shut my mouth right now, I would end up telling someone truly agonizing. End up telling him something truly agonizing both of us could live without. But before I could curve the conversation and ask for his name, 2 other men, similar in age to the one in front of me, walked in. I'm hoping I'm still holding your attention, but if anybody is left out, just let me know. And you can always buy the book too. Um, it's on Amazon and that platform. So yeah. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Alex preening herself for the new arrivals, tugging her V-neck t-shirt down, raising her cleavage, and almost spilling out of the overstretched opening. I rolled my eyes and directed my attention elsewhere. I didn't want to give her an audience. A man with a voluptuous mane the color of hay strolled up to my hero and patted him on the back. I see you've met some of the locals. The cute ones, anyway. He winked at me. Hi, I'm Wheeler. A thick blonde beard shadowed the boyish charm, lighting up his complex features. His highly contagious smile spread from ear to ear. Before I could catch myself, I felt my lips pull in the same direction. Shocking golden eyes proved a focal point against his flawless complexion. They panned between myself and the boy without a name, curiously. Bliss, I stated again. Wow, what a name. I think I'm in love. A pleasure to meet you, Miss Bliss. You know, King finds all the pretty girls, he praised. I watched the guy I made an unforgettable impression on scowl at his friend. I don't think I was supposed to know about his charming ways. Like I hadn't known before? If he acted half as courteous with all the girls, I wouldn't blame them for falling at his feet. Yup, such a babe magnet. Any town we visit, they sniff King out like bloodhounds. Are you kidding me? King had enough and finally spoke up. A hard punch followed the interruption to Wheeler's arm with a bit more force than necessary. Wheeler smirked and rubbed his barely wounded shoulder. He reached down and grabbed an exploded can from the floor and tossed it from hand to hand. A clearing throat brought me to peer toward the door. Their friend, who seemed to carry a permanent scowl, took a step forward and bowed. The only time I've ever seen a man bow was in movies, and I don't think this bloke meant in the same way Mr. Darcy bowed to Elizabeth Bennet. But who was I to judge? Mr. Darcy happened to be my permanent book boyfriend. Which is true, for me, yeah. With skin a shade shy of hazelnut, he didn't look anything like I pictured the great Englishman, but I could make an exception. You can call me Sam, lass. Oh, I'm supposed to do a Scottish accent, by the way. I'm probably going to have a few more of these at a later date to try and do that, because I am Scottish, but I cannot do an accent worth to save my life. You can call me Sam, lass. He directed me in a very sexy Gaelic brogue. And there's this idiot. Wheeler pointed at Sam and chuckled. We're a bunch of misfits, but at least we're adorable. He brought his hand under his furry chin and innocently batted his eyelashes. Bliss Margaret Stowe. Oh God. Grace Stowe, mother to yours truly, darkened the center aisle right in front of a smirking Alex. Embarrassment enveloped me, and nothing yet had happened. A precursor to the doom, I suppose. She looked furious. Well, it was nice meeting you guys. I tried to usher them out quickly. The last thing I wanted them to see was me getting chewed out and spit into pieces. I have to go see what that lady wants. Thanks again for helping me. I directed at King. Why my mom was in the store to begin with was beyond me. After the UPS truck incident and her freshly broken ankle, my dad has been trying to keep her in the house. Her stubborn need to control just about everything always went out, which meant she had her own reasons to be here. What those reasons were, well, we were about to find out. I turned to walk back to the service counter, but halted when a warm palm placed itself upon my shoulder. The butterflies swarming my stomach informed me that it was most likely King, but I didn't have much time to dwell on it as the pressure disappeared. A deep chill burrowed beneath my skin. Will I see you again? His deep, familiar timbre asked. His question shot like an arrow, piercing my heart and almost drove me to my knees. I didn't understand my instant attraction to King. He was just another boy in a world full of them. One fish in a sea of millions. I didn't know him from Adam, but the emotions coursing through me demanded I never lived without him, that it would tear me in two if we parted. I'm not sure, I replied honestly. I'm pretty busy. Oh. His mouth fell into a pout. Enjoy your time here in Sheboygan. The food's great and the people are even better. Make sure to visit the river down front. I continued, forcing a smile and pointing at the door. I hoped they didn't notice. It's beautiful this time of year. Come on, King, we've got to go. We have that thing we have to do. Remember? Wheeler added, he was being a good friend and keeping him from making a fool of himself. He gripped King's elbow and tugged him toward the exit. Who were they? My mom prodded as she hobbled up to greet me, a scowl lining her thin lips. Oh, nobody important. She turned to me, crossing her arms in a huff. If you say so. Now, about that Tupperware full of mini cheesecakes you devoured. Those are for my garden party on Tuesday, Bliss, and I tuned out her chide. I was too busy watching the three strolling past the big picture window, lightheartedly pushing and shoving one another in mocking ridicule. King turned to look at me one final time before disappearing from view. A wink was all he left me to remember him. This wouldn't be our last meeting. Not even close. Something big was about to happen. I could feel it in my bones. Something catastrophic and uncontrollable and reckless, inevitably obliterating my life and everyone in it. So there's a pause there, and this is later in the night. I just wanted to tell you that because I had it in the book and it removed it, or Ingram Spark removed it from there, and it just did a page break. But this is later that night. Help! A remote cry threaded through the chill breeze, piercing the dream state I fell into only moments ago. Just shy of 30 minutes before, I had trudged up the stairs to my bedroom after a filling meal of steak and potatoes. But this wasn't the four violet walls plastered with pictures of Jensen Ackles and Henry Cavill. Jagged, sharp rocks dug their way into the bottoms of my bare feet, bruises and scrapes covering my skin from head to toe. The thick air permeated with the stench of rotting fish and lake water. Glowing lights reflected from the Mackinac Bridge before me. Spanning a whopping 3,800 feet, the Mighty Mac is the largest suspension bridge in the North and South American continents. Waves crashed against the anchors as mist spritzed across my cheek, completely soaking through the black Team Jacob t-shirt I adorned. Behind me were the painted blue posts of Colonial Fort Michilimackinac. Good luck trying to pronounce that if you're reading the actual book. An iron fence barricaded the property to keep out unwanted nightly visitors. It's bolted shut every night, which meant I was trespassing. There was a law that no one was allowed in the park without the staff nearby because of the undertow's dangers. Scanning the perimeter to find the screamer was useless. I could hardly see a thing past the white caps violently sweeping the shoreline. Clouds shaded the moon in just the right way that cast a silver beam straight to the island. By the way, if anybody has not been to this area and has been to Mackinac Island, please go. It is beautiful, and it does have a lot of history, and it's pretty neat to hear. So, just as a side note. Another agonizing shout came from an immediate right, the same direction as the bridge. I crouched below a nearby bush to hide my location and strained to see or hear anything that was happening. Another scream came from a few hundred yards away. Someone help me, please, help! The last of the victim's words coming out only as strangled gasps. Hello? I called out, not sure if I wanted someone to hear me or not. I waited and waited and waited for someone to holler back to my question. I was desperate to be met with anything but what I received was radio silence. Static airwaves were dancing in the moonlight to no other tune but its own. My heart pounded hard in my chest, nerves cranked up high, wondering, praying I was too late. I wasn't too late. Well, I wasn't too late. Suddenly, two strikingly different silhouettes emerged on top of the cell tower, teetering dangerously close to the edge. Like a camera lens zooming in on a B-rated science fiction actor, my eyes performed an act not deemed fit in the natural world. I could see the details down to each follicle of hair on the victim's arm from where I stood. Commonly known as an adrenaline rush, I wrote the odd phenomena that defied every law of physics off as just that. Just an everyday, run-of-the-mill adrenaline rush. I wasn't ready to deal with what it might have been otherwise. I blinked the bad thoughts away and watched the attacker force his victim to the edge of the railing by her throat, suspended over the 552-foot drop to the cold waters below. Cars zoomed under the two towers at an alarming rate, seemingly unaware of the suspicious activity going on above their heads. Hovering over the girl with impressive stature was a man. He was covered from head to toe in dark jeans, a black unidentifiable sweatshirt, and the hood drawn over his face, a bandana concealing everything but his eyes. Soulless onyx pierced from beneath. Oversized hands bruised the slender neck of a girl that just hours ago I would have done anything to shove off that very same bridge myself. Alex. She kicked and twisted and struggled as the hooded figure drug her to the very cusp of the guardrail. Her face contorted in pain and terror in the fluorescent red warning lights as they sporadically flashed. A sickening gurgle of saliva bubbled from her throat. She was dying. No matter if he threw her over the edge or not, she was dying in his arms. From his bare hands, the tips of her toes balanced a fine line between the steel and nothingness. Tears stained the lines of dirt littering her face and never stopped coming. My cheeks warmed against the cool breeze. I hadn't noticed I began to tear up as well until I skimmed their rosy heat, finding wetness dripping from my fingertips while I stared. Distracting me for a short moment from the chaotic scene above, Alex pleaded for her life until the very end. In his calm state, he uttered, oh, hold on, I might have skipped a poop. Yep, no I didn't, okay. In his calm state, he uttered, "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but it's your time. I'm just following orders." With minimal warning, the man launched her from his grasp towards the quick-moving current below. I covered my mouth to muffle the scream escaping my throat as I watched my classmate fall to her death, the wind whipping around her nightdress, the material floating gracefully above her, making it hard to see the difference between the fabric and her arms flailing in panic. Her tangled hair, flopping in the breeze, made it impossible to see her face one last time, which I wasn't sure if I wanted to, out of spite, or I needed to just to prove to myself that I carried emotions for her other than disgust and hatred, fueled by words. Alex's body finally hit the water with a sickening crunch. Even from the shore, I could hear the horror as her head cracked open upon impact. The small circle of water surrounding the body growing large with crimson tint. I woke up with a start, clutching my lavender comforter in death grip to rival all. Sweat pouring from my skin, and the sheets clung to me like a boa constrictor. With shaking fingers, I raked my hand through my hair, still coated in stickiness from the events earlier in the day. No matter how many times I scrubbed, I couldn't remove the humiliation, my chest heaving as I tried to catch my breath from the nightmare.
It wasn't the first time I had dreamt someone dying. It wasn't even the first time I knew them personally. But it was the first time I recognized the killer's eyes. Irises black as pitch, with a strange blue burst near the cornea, had my heart beating 80 miles per minute. The way his voice carried a deep timbre, shattering me into a million pieces when King murdered the girl who left nothing but scars. When he threw her into Lake Michigan with a great smile on his face. That's chapter 1. So hopefully, I know it was a little distracted. I tried to read it. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you continue reading with me. As I said, I'm going to do this every 2 weeks. I'm thinking I'm going to drink a couple more of these beforehand because they help. But next week I'm going to do the ghost story, and I do believe that I'm going to start it off with my own bookstore, which I believe is haunted, but I'll tell you the story about that next week because it really is interesting on how I found out. But I wanted to tell you all, please, please, please do not drink and drive. And I will see you all next time. Thank you.